Hello, welcome back for another FM Live. I'm Brandon, and today we are going to talk about our NA/NB manifolds. We're going to go through some details here. Now, as always, you have questions, drop them in the comments. We'll try to get to them live. If not, we'll get to them after the fact. And if you hate vertical videos, don't worry, we got you covered. Horizontal video in 4K tomorrow. So, manifolds. Turbo manifolds specifically. This is what's necessary to carry the exhaust gas from the engine into the turbo and then out through the exhaust. So it is an integral part for making lots of good power in your Miata. We've had our old manifold design for a long time. Worked great, nothing really wrong with it. But we had some foundry issues, among other things, so we needed to change where they were made for availability reasons, so we decided to improve the design at the same time. So now these have been available for a couple of years, but only in complete turbo kits. They are now, including the outlets, available on their own if you want to upgrade, if you need to replace the parts that you already have, anything like that. So they are available piecemeal now. That's the new exciting stuff. So what did we do with the new manifolds? Why did we do it? Like I said, availability was the biggest thing. We had a great foundry right next door that we worked with and made really good parts occasionally. Obviously, the last part was a problem there. So we wanted to improve availability first and foremost. Now, we also wanted, it had to be interchangeable with our old turbo kits. So we weren't going to make a completely different design that wouldn't be backwards compatible for any of our customers that already had our turbo kits. We also didn't want to reinvent the wheel for the turbo kit because it worked very, very well, and there's a reason the turbo was in this place in the first place. So with that said, we want the best flow possible, the most efficient flow possible in the manifolds, which is going to improve your spool, quicker spool, less back pressure, which is better for heating and like thermal issues, horsepower, all of that fun stuff. And while we're in there, why don't we make it lighter as well? Cast iron is not a light material. That's okay because it's extremely durable, but still, we can probably take some pounds off of this guy. So we kind of started at the beginning. First step, what kind of material do we want it to be out of? Should we do stainless steel? Should we do some kind of crazy nickel alloy? So we did some research, we talked to different foundries, and the short version is this is ductile cast iron. It's a high quality and a specific grade of ductile cast iron, but it's not a super fancy exotic material because we don't need it for our application. These work very well. I've had one on my personal track and street car for 3 or 4 years now with zero issues. And stainless steel is awesome. There are absolutely advantages to it, and it is very expensive. So we kind of have to walk that line of making something very functional, work very well, but also realistic for our customers. So now that we knew the material, we wanted this to be as good as possible. So we looked to some experts in CFD, computational fluid dynamics. So CFD is kind of a big thing, particularly at what level you're doing it at. So we outsourced that. We also, you can see the pictures back here, these are 2 runners. The way we did the CFD to get 90% of the effect for 50% of the cost is we did CFD on 2 of the runners on 1 manifold, on the 1.8, and then we extrapolated from there just based on simple logic. So the first step was to take the original manifold and do CFD on, excuse me, the original manifold and get some numbers to baseline to see where we are to start off with. So that's what this one is. So you can see in the CFD, it's nice and smooth coming into the number 1 or number 4 runner here, but then it gets pretty turbulent in the sharp bend. So you can kind of see this, right? So in here, it gets pretty turbulent. The air, the exhaust gas is tumbling around a bit. In the numbers 2 and 3 runner, it's a lot better, but there's still a little bit of turbulence in there. And then as you get here, you can see some of these lines come back on each other. They slow down, so you want the most green possible. And you really want just the smoothest, straightest lines possible. And it's okay, but it gets messy in there. If you have one of these manifolds, our new manifolds are absolutely an upgrade. It's a great thing to do, and these still work great. So don't feel like you have to upgrade just because this exists, but if you want a little more, that's an awesome option. So once we had the evaluation of this one done, we could see what was wrong and what we wanted to improve. So we took a first stab at it. And actually, there were a lot of stabs, so I can't remember. This is an in-between stab. I can't remember which one. But basically, the first one, which is basically just smoothing things out, you can see how this is just a smoother runner there. There aren't sharp angles and everything. That was about a 17% improvement in efficiency. Cool, that's actually really good. So that's exactly what we want to do. But what if, say, we make it so that the runners shoot more directly at the turbo at the expense of sharper angles in here? Is that better or worse? That's worse. That was an 8% improvement over this. So still better than the original one, but not as good as our first stab at it. What if we make the inside diameter of the runners bigger? Will that help? Yes, but that's a 15% improvement. So what if we play with the diameter of the runners and kind of, instead of just bigger is always better, try to make it a little more intelligent? So if you look at the manifold, and this is just inherent, but they're unequal length, right? So this runner and this runner are the same length and fairly long, and these runners, again, same length, but fairly short. So what we did, we increased the ID of these two runners to slow that exhaust gas down. It would take, closer to the same amount of time for the exhaust gas to get from this port to the turbo as from this port to the turbo. And once we did that, we saw a 24% improvement in efficiency, which I would call quite good. Very happy with that. So again, that means quicker spool, less back pressure, more power. So we did that for the 1.8. Now for the 1.6, we just used the lessons that we learned on the 1.8 in the new design for the 1.6. So bad news, 1.6 people, I don't have exact numbers on the efficiency improvement. Good news, it's going to be even better than the 1.8. So this is just kind of a historic relic from the way back in the day kits, but you can see how this surface is higher than this surface when the head surfaces are in the same plane. So that means that the distance here is greater, which means that we can make those angles a little shallower because we've got more room here to work with. And the manifolds, the 1.6 manifold is shorter than the 1.8 manifold, which means that those angles are all going to be even shallower still. So the 1.6, I don't have exact numbers, but the 1.6 is going to have an even better improvement in efficiency than the 1.8. Now, on the outlet, we didn't make as dramatic and obvious of a change, but we did make a pretty significant change. So this is the old outlet. You can see they look basically the same on the outside. The quality is a little nicer on the new one, but they look basically the same. Where they differ is on the inside. So when we designed this outlet, we wanted to keep the wastegate outlet, the wastegate flow, separate from the main turbine flow. And I'm not going to go into the details on what that is for the sake of a brief video, but you can find all sorts of information online about what a wastegate is. So we did that, and we had this little lip to further separate it, to keep those two different streams of exhaust completely separate. So what we found in practice and from talking to our CFD pros is that we don't really need this. With the way the turbo is, the two flows are going to be pretty separated until they come together, you know, kind of here-ish, as basically forced by the geometry of the part. So what we did is we opened this up as much as possible. So this surface matches up with the turbo itself, or more specifically, this edge matches up with the outlet of the turbine in the turbo itself. So unfortunately, we don't have a turbo by itself here, but we could probably grab a similar sized turbo since I did a poor job of planning ahead. So it matches up with that. You can see that we kind of beveled things in there, smoothed everything out, just to make the exhaust flow as smooth and less restrictive as possible. So in doing that, we also saved quite a bit of weight on everything. So we dropped about 1.5 pounds off of this guy. So just, thank you. You can see, so these are, actually I think it is the same pattern on these, yeah. So you can see that this outline matches this outline. So it matches up, I don't know that it's exactly port matched, but it's very close to. That was certainly our intention there. So, thank you. So we dropped about 1.5 pounds, almost 1.5 pounds out of this guy, which sounds really, really good and is really, really good until you get to the manifolds, because we dropped over 2.5 pounds out of the 1.8 manifold. We dropped 4.5 pounds from the 1.6 manifold. That one, to be fair, was particularly beefy. So big weight difference between all of that, which is good in all of the different ways. Stress, load, outright weight, all that fun stuff. Now we have also coated these with a new coating. It's a Cerakote C7900, which is good for 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. Like I said, I've had one of these guys on my car for probably 3, maybe 4 years, street, track, who knows how many miles, and it pretty much looks brand new. That Cerakote stuff is very durable. It's also pretty scratch resistant. It's not scratch proof. You can definitely damage it, but it's not as delicate as a lot of other coatings, which is very nice. Now, I will take this opportunity, if you want even more technical information, if you are a true full-blooded nerd, be sure to go to our website and check out our knowledge base. So if you go to flyinmiata.com, go to resources, and then go to knowledge base, we have a lot of good information on a lot of different things in there, including these manifolds. You can see these pictures. There's some charts of the actual flow and such in there, and a little bit more information that's pretty awesome, frankly. Now, I did forget to mention, our manifolds come with ARP Inconel hardware. That's a very specific length, height. The shoulder is specific for our application, and it also comes with stage 8 nuts, which have these little tabs to keep things from loosening. The outlets come with hardware as well, but they come with the right hardware. Stainless studs, lock nuts, and Nordlock 2-piece lock washers. These don't have to deal with quite the same stress as this for reasons. So basically, we don't need to use the super fancy hardware on this guy. So there is my spiel. And as usual, Mr. Mike is flailing around in the background with questions. Yes, Mike?
These are super cool. Should I be concerned about the loss of mass because of the weight reduction in terms of longevity?
So these are awesome. Should I be concerned about longevity because of the mass reduction, because of how much lighter they are? No. Again, these have been in our turbo kits for something around 2 years. They've been on our development cars for even longer than that, and I don't think we've heard a single issue or anything with it. So the lighter weight means that there's also less weight, less mass that the manifold has to support. Now the turbo is a big chunk of weight, so it's a balancing act there. But short version, no, these have been proven extremely durable. No concerns there. Yes?
Say I had the original version and now I upgrade. Do I need to retune my ECU or make other accommodations?
So I had the old one, I upgrade to the new one. Do I need to retune? You shouldn't. It kind of depends on exactly how you're doing everything. The biggest thing is your boost level. You want to make sure that your boost is still in check because that could change based on the improved flow here. As long as you have tuned properly for all the different parameters, your engine should still be measuring your ECU should still be measuring the amount of air. It should still be running closed loop off the O2 sensor. So as long as it's tuned properly in the first place, then you shouldn't need to. If there's any question at all, do some data logging, be certain of that, because that will be a situational thing. But if things are done right, you'll be good to go. Yes?
Sounds an awful lot like some of the things we talked about with our NC turbo manifolds. Is this related?
It sounds like our NC Turbo, the things I've talked about on that, is it related? So yes and no. This happened before the NC Turbo did. So it's related in maybe the opposite direction than was implied. So the NC Turbo manifold is absolutely related to these, and we did apply the lessons that we learned in this design to the NC Turbo manifold, if that answers the question. Yes?
Do we have a 1.6 manifold with an EGR pipe?
We do not. Okay. So do we have a 1.6 manifold with an EGR pipe? No, we don't. In the US, 1.6 cars do not have EGR. In other markets, they sometimes do and sometimes don't. Depends on the year and the market and all sorts of other stuff. We did for a long time, and I think we sold 3 of them, and the other 100 1.6 EGR manifolds that we had, we plugged and sold to US or customers that were not using their EGR in, based on market and application, whatever else. So short version, no, we don't, and there is not a provision for it in the mold. If you have at least 100 of your friends who will 100% commit to doing it, we can talk about it. Unless that describes your situation, no, the market basically is spectacularly small in our experience for that. Yes?
Can I use this to upgrade from my old FM Veggie turbo kit?
Yes, so can I use this to upgrade from my old FM and Veggie turbo kit? Yes, you should. Now, if you go back far enough, there might be some weirdness. If you, diplomacy, so send us pictures to find out. Basically, where I'm trying to go with that, send us pictures and we can look at it and give you a more educated guess on it. Your best bet for that is to do it all in one package. Sometimes with the older parts, the tolerances were not quite there and the consistency was not quite there. So what might fit on your car, now this doesn't exactly match because these are all the same, but the old parts may not have been. So safest bet is manifold, outlet, downpipe all together. That said, they are intended to be direct replacements, so if you're a bit of a problem solver, you should be good to go. These are right. Your parts may or may not be right, so these may not match those exactly, if all that makes sense. Yes?
Have we done an A/B dyno test to show what power numbers you get with the new manifold versus the old?
So have we done an A/B power test with the new manifold? So yes, but there's an asterisk on there. So when multiple things change, it's tough to make a real solid determination there. Boost levels change a little bit, all that kind of stuff. So the short version is I don't have solid numbers that I can give you. However, it did prove beneficial. I want to say it was a few hundred, 200-300 RPM worth of spool and a few horsepower. I will also say that the more boost you're running, the more beneficial these will be. At a low boost, this is still beneficial, but it's not huge. But again, the higher your boost level, the higher the gains that you'll see from both parts. Good? Okay, so I had a handful, not very many, but a handful of questions ahead of time. Again, we're still doing the question stuff. If you have questions, drop them in. We will get to them. Would you sell just the manifold separately? Yes, we will. Finally. thank you very much for your patience. I know it's been a long time coming, but we finally have things sorted out. So we've got plenty of these manifolds in-house. We're good to go. We will sell you just the manifold, just the outlet, just the downpipe. How does it compare and differ from the Kraken manifold? I don't know. We have not evaluated the Kraken manifold. I can't really tell you one way or the other. I will basically recommend it on its own rights. We have done CFD. We do have measured improvement in efficiency, all that kind of stuff. The Kraken's probably still good. I might be biased. I think this one's probably better. But we have not tested anything, so I can't give you a solid answer on that one. Okay, my FM2 has a ton of surface rust. What is the best way to clean and treat this and prevent more rust in the future? So cast iron is, oddly, has a very high iron content and can oxidize or rust. That is totally nature of the beast with uncoated cast iron. And it can become nature of the beast depending on the quality of the coating, which is another reason we moved to Cerakote, because it is a very high quality coating. First off, probably doesn't really matter. Aesthetically, I know it's a thing, no argument there, but from a structural and functional standpoint, it doesn't really matter. It's going to form that layer of surface oxide, and it is an extremely solid material. It's going to be, and there's just a lot of it, so it's going to be a very, very long time before it rusts into the earth. That said, if you do want to get rid of it, take it all apart. Bead blasting is probably the best way to get rid of it, and then coat it with something that is truly high temperature and truly high quality. We have gone through a lot of coatings that are supposed to be magical and supposed to do, and are, purported to deal well with high temperatures, and a lot of them did not. Now, turbos in particular do have particularly high temperatures, so you have to make sure that your coating is rated to, with a safety margin, I would say minimum 1500, 1600 degrees Fahrenheit. That's why we do the Cerakote and the 1800 degrees. Frankly, this is not sponsored content, I promise, but I would just go to Cerakote because we know it works. And as long as it's properly applied, which is not complicated, but always needs to be stated as a qualifier, then it should work very long. You can probably find a local place to do it. I think there are DIY kits. You can just do it yourself as well. Okay, do any gens have improved flow due to space and packaging? Rewind back to wherever it was in the video where I talked about the 1.6, because the 1.6 manifold does have improved flow because of the packaging of the engine and just coincidence with the design of the turbo kit, I think. That said, it's not a huge difference, and there are no differences otherwise, because US market anyway, the 1.8, so therefore the exact same turbo manifold was used from 1994 to 2005. So, any more questions pop up? Okay, well, thank you as always for stopping by. If you learned something new, tell us about it in the comments. If you have more questions, tell us about it in the comments. That's what they're there for. We do pay attention to those and respond. I hope everyone enjoyed this. We will be back next week for another FM Live. We'll see you then.